Now it should be a connect, Jana.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
You go check, okay?
Yeah. Come on.
You will have a delay.
Oh, there it comes. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have a delay, yes. But
You will have a delay.
oh, there it comes. Yeah. Oh, I shall put out
Yeah?
the sound
Yeah,
because
I
I
hear
have
the
the
echo.
feedback. Yeah.
All right, guys. Shall I keep the frame just like it is with the three of us like this?
Yeah, but you do it your way. Maybe if like Enno says
Oh,
something like
yeah, we can switch
somewhat
like
longer, you can
this.
switch to larger. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
okay. I will control that. Okay.
That's your job, and the editing is my job.
Okay. Now let's get
Technology.
started. Okay?
Yes, sure. You go ahead, Kies, or
I will go ahead.
okay, excellent. Wim, I should
Um,
say.
Enno, welcome to the Climate of Change podcast. It's actually our very first time that we are doing this. So we hope everything goes well, but we know you for years. So we are happy that you're part of this. I am actually grateful that you give your time to us.
Thanks for
Before we
having me.
start, you're welcome. Before we start, we do this together with Jana. Jana and me are the hello, Jana. The
Hello,
guys
well,
who start Climate of Change, and what we're trying to do here is give a deeper insight into change that is all around us, that we actually don't find in the daily news, but it is actually very interesting for us all to know
yeah,
and maybe even to participate in it.
yeah.
Having
The
said
problem.
that,
So, oh, sorry. Yeah, the problem with the news is it only reacts to immediate events. You know, like there's an explosion or there's a terrorist attack or something like that, and sometimes they have background, but it's always the topics that that get the views or that's like easy to follow for most people. But the real interesting things are happening outside of the mainstream media, and that's what we're trying to do. All the change that's coming to us.
yes, Jana, I agree. So, Enno, could you please tell us a bit about yourself? Who is Enno Schmidt and where are you currently at and what's keeping you busy?
Well, currently I'm at the University of Freiburg in Germany, um, and contributing to build up the Freiburg Institute for Basic Income Studies, which is intended to be an international center. We gather several research teams on different topics of the universal basic income, international teams and also only German teams. For example, UBI and gender, UBI in post-conflict regions, or the issue of financing, or UBI and ecological issues. So that's what I'm currently doing. And before I lived in Switzerland and I co-founded the initiative for an unconditional basic income in Switzerland, which led to the referendum that we have had in 2016. And that gave a huge push for the global debate. So the result of the referendum has been 23% of the voting citizens voted in favor for a basic income, so the large majority against. But it's usually in Switzerland that such important topics have 2 or 3 referendums to come through. For example, the right to vote for women was a procedure over 70 years. So I hope it's a bit faster. That's my main topic since the year 2006, unconditional basic income. I can say this is my full-time job since then. And before, okay, my origin is to be a painter, an artist, and I founded the company Economy and Art Expanded, and that was a real company with entrepreneurs, with artists, to act in a crossover of entrepreneurial and artistic understandings, methods, and doing real things, so that individual responsibility, what is art, totally responsible for everything, you yourself, and working together on the most important issues we have in the society. That was what I wanted, to bring that together. So working together, but being totally responsible as an individual. And that happened in the 1990s. We founded that as a real company, and I was CEO of that. And then from that, I moved forward to money issues and worked in a foundation that gave unconditional subsidies. And that is a huge experience for me then to step in this issue or this topic of unconditional basic income.
So if I understand correctly, you have an actual, I didn't know that you have an actual personal experience by getting, let's say, an allowance.
Yeah.
That frees up time and space to do your creative work.
On both sides. So how it is to give it to others, because I was member of the board of this foundation, how difficult it is not to judge people by their title, by what they want to do. So, but really looking, hey, can we give you an unconditional support? It was not a huge amount. It was at that time around 400 D-Mark. So this is 200 euros now for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. But it was an additional space of freedom. And this is difficult really to look to people and not always saying, well, because you want to write a book, because you need a new cow for your farm or whatever. And to really give it to the person with no conditions. So you can buy beer or whatever, you can do good things. And some people stopped doing those wonderful things they did because they are exhausted. And in our usual world, you have to work on even on voluntary things and so on, because you need some money from foundations. And some people stopped doing that and narrowed it down to a smaller scale that fits more for themselves. And I also experienced then that I got that money, so that they say, but what's with you, Enno? You need some additional subsidy, unconditional too. And that was interesting for me, because in the first moment I thought, yes, but why? And for what is that money? And I became suspicious, what kind of people are they? Maybe this is like mafia, you get money for nothing, but then you have to do something they ask you for. Is it a sect? What is it? So I know how it feels to get an unconditional amount of money that you are used to know for what it is. So as a painter, I sell pictures. I know this money is because of my painting. I have a contract. I do things by a contract, to give and to get. But just to get or just to give is totally different. And then after a while, I realized that this unconditional amount is like a sunglass or a focus burning on your self-responsibility. You have so many excuses. Even me as an artist or somebody who is really going freely in the world, looking what is the most important to do, it focused the self-responsibility so strong. I never experienced that in before. So do you really do the best of your skills and your opportunities? Do you really do it? Or are there excuses why you can't, and so on? We are used to have excuses not to be what we are and not to do what we really can do.
Fascinating, it triggers something in me also, because I also have a personal experience for a period in my life that that there was made money available to me, to explore something basic with a not totally unconditional, but with an open agenda. And it's my experience also that it's just like you just said. You said that beautiful with the sunlight. You get this focus that you actually start to really start. Okay, I have this huge opportunity now in front of me. It's my responsibility to do something good with that, which actually brings you back to what you really want to do, what you really love to do, and what you're really passionate about. and you just have the opportunity to not think about all these, other stuff around you, and that actually brings out the best in you. Can you say to me if it actually changed you as a human being?
No, no, that would be too much. And I think an unconditional basic income will not change everything. But what I can say is, because that is part of, let's say, my research, that what people are doing then, if there is an unconditional opportunity to do things not for money or not in the relationship to earn money. So as an artist, you do not paint because you are paid for it. That's not art. So it's always that you are doing things because you think, or you are looking after what is right, and you are in this experiment, and you are in the different mood than people who are ordered to do that and this. But I can say, if people have the opportunity more freely to choose what they do not do some stupid things. They do not do some needless nonsense, because the satisfaction for a human being is to do meaningful things, to feel needed, to feel that this is good for others, to feel a sense in it. And that means people don't start to do some holiday stuff. People start to improve their skills, educate themselves, look to the neighborhood, or do work they think this is the most important to do for others. And that is a condition, or that is the character, that is how can I say that? That is what work is in real. So that people are doing things by their belief, this is the best I can do for other people. So that makes sense, and that is fulfillment of life. Fulfillment is not leisure time and doing nothing, and on the other side being a slave ordered to earn money. This is a wrong image of human being.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this explanation, Enno. And I wonder, so you had that experience, and the next thing we hear from you is that you're throwing coins on a square in Switzerland.
Yeah, 8 million.
8 million of them,
Yeah,
which is actually a brilliant idea, because that does it well in the media.
Yeah.
How did you end up doing that?
Well, first I have to say the idea is from Daniel Haney and other people joining the team. It was not original my idea, but yeah, the idea was, there is a saying in Switzerland, you cannot have the bread and the money. So, and by this there was a brainstorming, and Daniel came up with the idea to do something with this little golden 5-centime coin, 5 Rappen. So the smallest amount of money in a coin in Switzerland, and it looks beautiful, it's golden. And then, to say, okay, there are 8 million inhabitants in Switzerland, around about. So we take 8 million of these little coins, real money, to make visible that the money is there. So basic income is not an issue of money, it's the issue of trust, it's the issue of unconditionality. And so it was really difficult to get that coins. First, we asked the National Bank, and they rejected that. And then we bought it from the banks in Switzerland. But then there has been an order in the background from the National Bank: don't sell 5-centime coins to this is a crazy team who wants to do that. So we didn't got it from there. And then it came in the media a little bit, so that the National Bank is disturbing the game and is so blocking it. And then the National Bank gave the permission, and then 2 trucks came to our headquarters in Basel, 2 trucks full of money, and we have had 3 weeks or 4 weeks to roll that coins out of the paper. That was a huge action, and we made a film of that. And then we needed a heavy truck, so for stones, rocks, or sand. And you can imagine the the company where we asked for that truck, and they asked for what is it, and usually it's for sand or rocks or whatever, and we said for money.
Yeah.
Well, that was a quiet moment. They really silent for a moment and thought, oh, but then they enjoyed that, and we brought that to that place. So in the headquarters of Switzerland, Bern, at this Federal Square in front of the Federal Palace, and on the other side, the National Bank, and then dropped down this 8 million 5-centime coins, a golden mountain of money, and wept it out over the square, and people walked on it, played there, talked there, have their meetings. So it was from the mountain of money which is there to a floor to live on, and people really did that. And of course, this was the image that jumped over the ocean, and the Americans were very interested in that Hollywood-like picture. And in real, the media took it, and then the debate started in our biggest poster on the biggest square in Switzerland, in Geneva. That was also an image that triggered globally medias, and that was the real success, with this background of that serious Switzerland, serious and good in dealing with money, and they are voting on this issue. That gave a huge push that this is serious, and this is not left-wing. So this is not about poverty. This is about something different. And that was so important to get it out of the corner of poverty and left-wing and all that stuff. What it is not, an unconditional basic income is not help for the poor. It is the same basis in unconditional love in our society for every member of the society. So whether you are rich or poor, ugly or nice or whatever, this is focused on the human being. And that's why it is so hardly focusing your understanding of what a human being is, you yourself, and in particular, all those you don't like.
Amazing story, Enno. So you actually inspired Andrew Yang in America.
I don't know, maybe, yeah. So I inspired a lot of people also by the film Basic Income, A Cultural Impulse in 2008. The first film, it is 100 minutes, where I tried to get the understanding of the idea or image of a basic income a little bit in a whole. So because it's always fractioned. People are talking about this fraction and that fraction. It's always misunderstood. And I tried to do that. And that has had a huge influence also globally. It was translated in 24 languages. And yeah.
You said something about basic income is not about poverty. And you also made a remark that there is no, let's say, political color to basic income.
Absolutely.
Could you explain that?
Yeah, as long as you are talking about the poor, they remain to be poor. You need them. You need the poor to talk and to fight for and against and so on. I don't call the people poor. People are not poor. This is a mistake of a society, that some people has too less money, but that is a lack of cash. They are not poor people, All this, what we are common and used to talk about people, about dirty job and all that stuff, it is made by us. It is not the truth. The truth is there are no poor people. There are people with a lack of money, with too little money. But an unconditional basic income is for everybody. And this is a difference. It is not focusing on the poor, what we know and do since ever, and remaining poor people, holding the poor people poor, and you see what happens. The gap between rich and poor becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, unbelievable, really crazy, with all our having no new idea but fighting against poverty like we did, and all the people fighting against poverty feel very good and very selfish in their self-understanding. I am right, you are wrong, the rich are wrong, the poor are right, and all that stuff. All this is no future, all this is no performance and no work. So unconditional means everybody is considered as a human being. Everybody has in the society this right to live. It is nothing else than the right to live. It is given to everybody, like the right to vote is given to every citizen. And as you remember, in the beginning of democracy, first people argued that the right to vote can be given only to those with property, only those who have responsibility and are educated, not to the simple poor people on the countryside, because this is overwhelming for them and they get crazy by it. So, and it needs a lot of time, decades, to understand that also women are humans and have the right to vote. We have these experiences in our history that first there are arguments and arguments against, serious arguments against abolishing slavery, against democracy and all that stuff. And so this is also in regard to an unconditional basic income, and we have to overcome the old attitude of our social solidarity thinking, which does not work and which time is over. So we have to think newly, becoming more sensible and more close to what the issue is. It's the issue, what is a human being different from a robot in 50 years? So this, I guess, is a huge question of today, and unconditional basic income is asking that question.
Yeah, so it's basically keeping it out of the political domain in that sense. Because if you are talking only about poor in the context of basic income, you are sort of politicizing it already. And as you explained, it's actually far beyond that. So what you can actually see is like we had like the development of democracy. Like at one point in the Netherlands, women could vote, etc., 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 and people who are schooled could vote, and blah blah blah. So we've had that trajectory, and can we sort of compare that now that to economy, so that economy is becoming more democratized in that sense?
Well, I think there's a difference between economy and democracy. So first, just to strengthen that idea you mentioned, it is really not for a specific political party. There are people from all parties against and for that.
Yeah.
Democracy is our rules we set for ourselves on the level that we are equal as human beings. That is a basic basis of rights, and that is the basic of an unconditional basic income. So the interesting point is that money is not part of economy. Money is part of the sphere of rights. Finally, a democratic tool, a democratic instrument defined by the people, working because of trust of the people. So money is not goods or commodity. It is not a production of economy. It's a production of society, and this is democratically defined and determined. Economy is not in that same way equal rights. Economy is a social field of the society. So the social is the economy. That's where people are doing things together for others, dealing with each other and promoting other people with what they need. So economy is, if you want to say it, it's more brotherhood. It is, people are different skills, different whatever, and bringing in the best they can for the benefit of others. This is in real, factual economy. The ideology of economy is war, everybody against each other. So this is the ideology. Profit in form of money, for me, is a goal, is a meaning, is a sense, is everything, the cause for an enterprise to be established, that I get money out of your pockets. This is an old understanding of hunting. So when the hunters went in the jungle, getting out an elephant or whatever for their family and themselves. And this primarily male understanding of economy is still as an ideology existing, but this is not the truth. Look, nobody is working for him or herself. we are all working for other people, whatever you do, whatever job you are doing. If you look careful on that and not saying, oh, I'm working for the boss. No, you don't work for your boss. What you are really doing, factual, it's not ideology, it's not nice thinking. Factual, you are doing things for others, for the benefit of others, always. We are doing that globally. So, and we have this lack of understanding. Our consciousness is far behind that we still think, no, we are doing things for ourselves, like in the very, very ancient times. Consciousness is, 2, 3, 4,000 years behind, but we can get it in the present, in the current time, by understanding an unconditional basic income.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. Wow, it's a very interesting philosophy, and you just touched the subject of human rights. I don't know if you heard about it, Enno, but last week there was a ruling of a Dutch court against Royal Shell, the famous
Royal Dutch
oil
Shell.
company, and they ruled that Shell must lower their emissions by 45% in 2030. It actually means that they need to speed up more than they're actually doing right now. And it was actually ruled by a Dutch court. So it's and they do that in the spirit. It's done in the spirit of the Paris Agreement. But their basic philosophy in that court ruling was that it's a human right to have a sustainable future. It's a human right to have, less emissions out there because we're killing ourselves and the planet. So we're actually seeing change happening all around us, because it's quite phenomenal that a Dutch court rules against a company like Shell, which is not a small one,
The case
to
was
lower
brought
their
forward.
emissions.
Yeah, the case was brought forward by a Dutch activist group, environmental activists. They were even themselves surprised that, I think this is like the first time that a company is being directed by the court to reduce emissions enormously. And I think maybe, this is another way. We have democracy, and the other way, like this example, is going through court. Will we see that in other areas as well? And is that also your question, Wim?
No, I was, thanks, Jan. I was wondering if a court ruling like this isn't exactly what Enno just said. Don't we need a higher level of consciousness of what the hell we are doing out there anyways, and get that into our legal system, into our political system, into our economic system? Because I think the key is indeed raising our level of consciousness of why we are actually here and what we are doing.
Exactly. And it's like what Enno made the analogy. It's like if I interpret it well, it's basically going from the hunters, the ego, satisfying the ego, survival, to a whole new concept of sharing, of a more social approach, of being helpful, being creative, develop yourself. Let me say this: what I wanted to say earlier. Before this talk we have now, I watched 5 videos on YouTube about UBI, Universal Basic Income, and all 5 videos, one of the main points was you have to find meaning, because that's what's left. If the robots take over your job, and you get an unconditional basic income, then it's the challenge for a lot of people, because a lot of people see their job as giving meaning to their life.
Right, and that's the truth. Work is giving meaning for your life. But as you mentioned, so I would say it's developing consciousness, but even more sensibility and courage. So actually, we know everything, but we don't act because of laziness. And that's why I say we are living in a lazy society, and laziness is trained. It starts in the schools and the universities, where people are learning things with no real result and impact on society in a good way. So I think we have, in particular and mainly, to contemplate, let's say that first, to think about what is work. It gives meaning to your life. That is different from employment or paid, gainful employment. So we are used to think on gainful employment when we are talking about work. More than half of all work done is unpaid work, mostly done by women, care work and so on, voluntary work. So it's not the truth that gainful employment is the norm.
Yeah.
More than half of work done is unpaid. And that's often mostly the even more helpful and impactful work for society that gives cohesion in the society, gives a feeling of I am useful in some way and developing skills. So what I want to say is, if we don't rethink our understanding of work, then we will go down by automation, because then we go down into that work that computers and machines and robots can do better than we. And we have not the spirit to understand that this is not the end of work. We have so much to do in social relations, environmental relations, becoming much more sensible on what is with your soul, what is with your life and your progress in life, your breakdowns in life, all that catastrophes and so on that happened, and people need somebody to accompany them. So we have so many things to get aware of. What we don't do by sticking on employment, and paid work is what work is. So you are so totally right. Work gives meaning to your life. And that's why unconditional basic income. It's not the opposite. Then work is abolished. No, it's the opposite. Set people free to work and to do the things they feel that this is what I really want to do. And again, because it's so important, it's the main point for me. If you look to history, the history is a development of more sensibility. People become aware of, for example, psychic issues. If you look 100 years ago, how they talked with each other or wrote things, it was absolute no-go for today. How they mention women and the rule of the role of women or whatever. We developed that. We became more sensible. This is history, more sensibility, to get more in your awareness, more freedom, and more self-responsibility. So, and this is together. More self-responsibility needs more freedom. More freedom is asking and forcing more self-responsibility. And to go forward in a process needs to enlarge, to expand your awareness, your sensibility, and that is what the work of the future is. So there is more work to do than people on Earth, but we need to get open for that. So otherwise we will go down in this old understanding of work is what you can order people to do, or some other paid jobs. And this is not the future.
Okay,
Right.
now clear. I agree with you, because I'm been following also Rianne Eisler, who has done a lot of work when it comes to things like care economy and getting the message out there that most of the actual work that is being done is actually not paid. So if we would start paying that, the GDP would rise like we have never seen before.
And imagine what the trees are working, the animals are working. So we have this very narrow and actually stupid understanding. It is really stupid. It is uneducated. So many people who are very educated are in real very far from education in regard to life and factual existing Zusammenhänge.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Yeah.
But just to avoid one misunderstanding in regard to basic income, it's not that people are not paid or that there is no payment. It's not that people should not want to become rich. This is all fine. This is untouched. This is just the basic income is unconditional. People who wants to drive a Ferrari like me, that's allowed. So that's not forbidden. That's not a judgment. An unconditional basic income is not a judgment about you. And that is an important point too. Today you get judged when you need help from others and they say what's to do because you are wrong. You didn't got it by yourself, so I tell you what to do. This is not with an unconditional basic income. No judgment. You don't have to explain why and press out and show everything. It's just given.
I did not hear this in the videos that I saw. So this is really enlightening, because what you're essentially saying is that we have to take unconditional extremely literal, because it goes really far in the way how to interpret the word unconditional. And the way you tell it is a way I have never heard about it. So that's very interesting, and hopefully for our viewers as well.
Well, yeah,
your work to do, Enno. Get the message out there. We're just trying to help to get the message out there.
Yeah. But unconditional, it's easy to understand, isn't it? Unconditional really means unconditional, and included is everybody. Included is no judgment, no differences. And this is the core of what a human right is. But we forgot what a human right is. It's just a saying today. Nobody knows it. You make that experiment to think about human right, the right to live. Where does this come from if it's not an attitude? Where does it come from that you say, okay, Jana has the right to live. The right to live, it's coming from you yourself. Why? How? That means you need an experience, an awareness of another person, an individual, a human being that is really a being and not a function. So we are used to think about functions. What is Wim doing today? What can I write in the list? Function. But being, look to being, experience of being. And that is heavily for some people to bear, because this means, wow, you are touched. And that's what I mean with sensibility. You have to become more touched by everything, because otherwise you are like in a coma, on drugs.
You're a human machine.
So, and this is unconditional, relates to the right to live, because the right to live is given unconditional. No, there's nothing to say against it. Everybody has the right to live. And this is not a good idea. It's intellectual. This is the result of an understanding of human being that came up in the 17th, 18th century. Before of that, people haven't had that awareness or consciousness. And that means, look, there's a development of understanding, of sensibility, of awareness. There's a development of individualism. And that has to be, there has to be an answer to this in the society. Society has to give the opportunity for development of the humankind. And the development is more individualism with more self-responsibility. So we have to, that's why we have to change those rules from the past, which has been good at some time, but not today. We have always to change it, and we have to develop democracy forward. So parliamentarism is not the best construction of for today. That has been a good one maybe in the beginning of the last century, but today we need much more opportunities for direct democracy. And on the other hand, this is the challenge for the people, and people need to be challenged in a way. So if you always say, oh, people are not mature, let's keep them childish, then they keep childish. We need more challenge in democratic participation, more challenge in self-responsibility and self-awareness of what is needed to do and all that stuff. And we need, of course, a total change in education.
It's very interesting. I know. Thank you so much for this. And you're touching something else now in me also, again, because your philosophy actually gets us out of the loop called "How are we going to pay for this?"
Oh yeah,
Because
that's
that's what
very
Famous
everybody is
question.
always
Famous
going to
question.
say. The
that's very
famous,
simple.
how are we going to pay for it? So I need to work so someone else gets, no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no, no.
You lazy guy, and
Blame
others
game.
has to
Yeah.
work and pay taxes for you, doing nothing, and work for you too. And so, yeah, that is a debate for years, but we can make it very brief. Everybody needs a basic income. Otherwise, you can't live, because we are living in a monetarized world. And as I said, that is not a philosophy. This is science, or this is enlightenment to understand where we are living. It's not philosophy, it's factual. We are doing things for each other. So you don't do things for yourself. You are not self-supplying yourself. And that's why you need an income. And because this is much more efficient than everybody is doing everything for him or herself, that's why we have global work sharing, and we have this doing things for each other. That's why you need an income. Otherwise, you wouldn't need an income. But we all need an income, and we all have an income. Otherwise, you cannot live. So we have a basic income. Some has a little, too little of that, too less of that. Some has it not in form of cash, but by food or shelter given by others. But basically, to understand this point, we already have a basic income. And the basic income should change, move into the unconditional. So this is not about more money. This is about the basis. The basic income is transferred into the unconditional. It is paid out separately. It is the amount of an unconditional basic income, what the society is democratically deciding. This is what we think is the basic income amount given unconditional. If it's given unconditional, you will see there will be first that the state will say, okay, social benefit security payments are no longer needed up
And
to
the whole
that level.
system around it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's huge savings of money, of course,
Yeah,
when you do that. Yeah.
but always misunderstandings. Above the level of the basic income, social security benefits are needed longer on by the same procedure like today. For example, people with special service need, handicapped people, chronically ill people, and so on. But the whole level up to basic income is no longer needed as support from state, so transfer from the state or private transfer. It's also not needed. And then there will be negotiations in the private as well as in the public sector that the state will say, okay, you have the basic income is unconditional. So Wim gets the basic income, let's say it's 1,200 euros, and we gave you a salary of 2,500. What's the salary now? It's not just gold raining from above. You have 1,200 more. Nobody noticed. Nobody is doing anything. Look to the market and the competition in the market. Look that the employees will ask the employers will ask their employees, what's the new wage now? There will be negotiations. And you can imagine somebody who is working for a low wage today cannot minimize the wage about the whole amount of the basic income. But on higher wages, it's possible. And there's also competition who gets the job. And that means, finally, at the end, the purchasing power in the society has to remain the same. Otherwise, you have inflation. Then this is a method to keep the purchasing power on the same level, because it's inflation, but that's not what we want, and you can avoid it. So we will have at the end that those who has little money today will have a bit more. Their situation is better then. Families will have a bit more. Their situation will be better, and that is all very useful and needed. But in the whole, whether prices nor income are so different than today. Total income. But then the total income is one proportion is basic income, like for everybody. The other is earned money or money from neighbors or gift or whatever. So that means financing basic income is not the question about much more money, because then you have inflation. It's no go. And it's not the idea. And it's not the truth, and it's not factual, nothing. It's just fantasy. The real thing is that the basic income of today will change into the unconditional over on that via that way. I just mentioned very briefly. I said we can talk long about that. And then taxation is a question, where's the tax and so on. This is too much for now. But in principle, and that has to be understood, in principle, it is the conversion of the basic income of today in the unconditional. And that means then there's a better platform for negotiating wages. Those who earn little will earn not so much like today, but together with a basic income, more than today. And those with higher incomes they earn in total really a little bit less, maybe because the basic income of your wife and your children can come in account too, can become part of the negotiation too. And that's more possible. There's more space for it if you have a high income. Just to say that it's not the question of much more money. It will be a little more money. I give you a number. In Switzerland, for example, for all Swiss, this suggestion or proposal of a basic income would cost
what age bracket?
Age bracket was 18.
Okay.
So up to 18, 625. It is not our question to the government, but that was in the discussion freely as an example. 2,500 Swiss francs, that is around about the purchasing power of 1,200 euros, 625 for minors. Then you have around about 210 billion Swiss francs in a year for all the basic incomes for all the Swiss who get it.
So in euros, that would be like 120?
It is difficult because the purchasing power is so different. And
that's true.
The exchange rate doesn't say anything. The exchange rate is not important for that. It's just numbers. It's just an example of numbers. So together with the Department for Social Issues in Switzerland and economy clubs and agencies and so on, we agreed that in Switzerland, around about 60 billion Swiss francs can be saved in subsidies, social benefit, security payments. So this is 60 billion from 210. And approximately around about 130 billion Swiss francs will be saved in current wages, as I said, in the public sector from the state, as well as in the private sector. So then together you have 190 billion Swiss francs less in the current incomes. So social benefits, pensions, child subsidies, and all the wages, salaries. And then there's a rest of 20 billion. This is in addition. But on the other hand, we made a potential study by an institute, and they came to the result that with non-conditional basic income savings in health, costs for health, medicine, because that's an evidence that there are less mental health problems with non-conditional basic income. People become healthier, getting a better life quality, less what can I say, waste in the company. So looking more motivation, more innovation. So the result was 60 billion Swiss francs in addition, by savings and by more productivity, more efficiency, because by an unconditional basic income. And other studies of the Roosevelt Institute in New York, for example, said the same. The GDP will grow when we have an unconditional basic income, and it will grow even better as higher the amount of the basic income is. So
I saw even a figure like something like 8% in the early years, the GDP growth. Would be
Yeah,
like
I think
8%, something like that.
that was, I think, in the Roosevelt in the study in New York. I think that was a number.
Yeah.
8%, and with another amount 13%.
Wow.
And in this potential study, it was around about 4 or 6%, what they said.
Okay. Okay.
So the actual cost of basic income is 0 or negative.
Yeah, it becomes better. Life quality, efficiency. Look to the jobs today. How many jobs are really not necessary? The book of David Graeber, Bullshit Job. It's so true. I can agree with that.
I
So
will
many,
put a link in the show notes from that book because that's really
Yeah.
worth reading.
yeah, that's really worth reading. So many work is just keep people busy, keep the power on the people and keep them busy with stupid stuff. There's no question about whether this is meaningful, makes sense, or helps the world to proceed.
Exactly.
You are totally convincing me that basic income is a very important instrument in getting more equality in our society, and because we get more equality, we can explore our own, capacity and opportunities in a healthy way without being scared of all kinds of stuff we need to be scared about today in an economical sense. Do you have an opinion, Enno, about how basic income potentially could play a role in our attempts to stop the climate change?
Absolutely. So as you said, more equality, but more freedom, more opportunity to work. We have a society today where work is no value, not in real. It is payment and all that stuff, egoistic stuff. With non-conditional basic income, people are more free than today to do those things they value and they see this is necessary. And the people know that fighting against climate change, doing things for a better environment are highly necessary. So many people will start to do things in this regard, not necessarily as a full day job for only a basic income, which is no payment. But I interviewed many people, and I can say one result, if you bring it together, is that most of the people say, with an unconditional basic income, I will do my job further on, because that's not so wrong. Most people are more or less fine with the job. They studied it. They have a team. They have responsibility in that. But I would like to take 2 days of the week for different work when there is an unconditional basic income. To look to the neighbors, to look to migrants, to integrate them, to do social activities. And I'm absolutely convinced with an unconditional basic income, the time of blocking necessary work and keep people busy with nonsense will end, and people can start working on those questions and those issues and challenges that are really needed today. And environmental issues are highly needed. So like also issues of mental illness, issues of social interaction, time for human beings, time for all the beings, more awareness. So I think without an unconditional basic income, there's no chance. Because with the mentality and ideology that everybody is an egoist and you are a better person if you are more big fat egoist and get all the money for you, and then by your generosity you spend some money for some good things. That is too less. That's not the society we need to face the problems we have and the challenges we have. So non-conditional basic income will give the floor to act for necessary to solve the problems, and therefore it will be good. And the just last point, in a survey, 34% of the asked people said with an unconditional basic income, they will look much more careful about where the products come from what they buy, and whether this is fine for the environment, fine for the
Yeah.
people who produced it, and so on.
Yes,
So
and not just cheap. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was wondering, like, I don't know if I put it right this way, but when you told this, I was thinking about maybe we see a shift in incentives, because in the past we worked like 9 to 5 to get a salary, and you weren't thinking about the meeting, etc., etc. For a lot of people, and now you get a situation where I would not say that the UBI is the incentive itself, but the new incentives are the things that people care about the environment, about the neighbor, about the elderly woman across the street, etc., etc. These are incentives out of a human necessity, like I refer to the human being where you talked about. Is that true? Could you say like there's a shift in how people perceive incentives to do things?
yeah, absolutely. I think it's needed that incentives are more intrinsic by
Yeah.
your own understanding and belief. So it does not necessarily mean that people are also always doing meaningful things judged by others. So many people said, with an unconditional basic income, first I will travel, or first I will do nothing. Also, that's fine. So we have to accept that you yourself knows best what's good for you, and many people need a break, a time
Sure.
out before they can rethink and start newly. More intrinsic motivation and more motivation by your own insight and your agreement with what it is about to do, and less this unhuman understanding of incentives like electroshockers, or like you have the carrot before your mouth and now run, run, run. This is unhuman, and that is not just because it's unhuman. It is destroying the globe. It is destroying the souls. It is destroying the social cohesion, everything. So
But it's
it's,
like a product from the industrial era, and so we're
yeah,
leaving that era.
industrial
And
area is
yeah,
military structure, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
If you look
exactly.
to the military was the first huge form of organizing, and the industrialization took over this structure of the military, of
Yeah,
discipline and all that stuff. And that is not a story. This is the truth.
that's
This is the
actually
truth.
where money comes from, because that's how we created money to pay military people to wage war,
Yeah,
then conquer new territories, then
yeah,
implement a new
Yeah,
taxes system and use the military to get the taxes in to pay
yeah.
them. That's
Because
the history
soldiers
of
were
money.
one of the first who did not work, who did not do things for others, but needed to be supplied by others, like priests and the
Kings.
rulers and
No.
the soldiers. So yeah, income is coming from there. So this is our history, and that's all fine. But we have to know that this is a history, and that we have to lead it further on to
Yeah.
improve and to make our social contracts fitting with what we are feeling, where we are living real.
I have a question, because I look at the clock and we're almost near the end. Too bad, but it's fascinating. I don't know if you can answer this question shortly. Maybe it's too big of a story, but is there? Can you point out specific reasons why you feel that now the time is coming for a universal basic income? Are there parallels to how the internet has developed and how people are communicating all over the world, how people are trading across internet, and maybe the coming decentralization of finance and digital currencies and stuff like that? Are there links to that?
Yeah, all this. I think the time is coming. One is because we have the opportunity to do that. I think 50 years ago, there was not really the opportunity. Second, the need is there because automation, digitization creates a need to rethink what is a human being. This is the first, not the money, not because people lose their jobs. The first is we have to define who we are. Otherwise, robots will do it. And with that, we need that unconditional basic income, because human work, different from machine work, is work done by your understanding your responsibility, and is more close to creativity, and if you want to say it, artistic work, So that means you are always looking as a human being, what is the right thing to do? There are not so much patterns for it. Patterns are now taken over by patterns by machines. So that is necessary to think about a different spread of income. How can the people get the money? And this is the unconditional basic income. And therefore the time is coming, and the time is coming because we need a new enlightenment, like in the first industrial revolution. We need it now. On the other hand, you see people are running in the tunnel. People are running down, and COVID-19 and the measures, the lockdown, and how people agreed sometimes seems to me really careful, so that autocracies and authoritarian regimes are taken over by the people, and we need to bring new light in it. And an unconditional basic income is it.
It's very interesting. So it's sort of basically like automation, and we have to take that broadly, like from physical robots to artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. Is actually forcing us to review, to reflect ourselves what we are as human beings.
And this is the
what
first,
our role is in the future. Yeah.
This is important. This is the first step. So when people start saying, okay, we need an unconditional basic income because people become unemployed, and this is the reaction, the answer on the digitization, then you are not the human being at the top. Then you are just following up the roots and the forms created by an unbelievable machinery, an intelligence which is not human, and that says, okay, we have automation now, you need a basic income. So it's the other way around, and that is absolutely decisively. First, human beings are asking, who are they, what we are, what is a human being, and then they can keep on having the leading position as a human being. Otherwise, the leading position is some intelligence from elsewhere. And that's not so good.
Exactly. And I think creativity is an important role for that, and empathy and emotions, etc. All the things that will take a really long time before robots can do that. We're talking like hundreds of years. So these are the qualities as humans that we have to maybe rediscover for one part.
And robots doesn't need to have to do that, because robots should do things that are better if they are done more efficient.
Exactly.
But emotions are not better when they are more efficient.
Exactly.
So education is not better if you take less time for doing that. You know, life is not better if it's very short and very, and it's also not better if it's in eternal. So
absolutely. Wim, you have one of the last questions, or?
Yes, I know. I've got one more question, if you allow me. I've been involved in setting up a non-profit in the last 3 years, as you know. And one of the discussions in there is that I am of the opinion that we should not get stuck in a mindset that people that collaborate or work with or work for non-profits should not get paid. Because I don't believe in that philosophy at all. If you see non-profits as a vehicle to collaborate, to get some real change going, and I think non-profits are one of the opportunities, one of the instruments we can use to really get change going. We should alter our mindset that everyone who is collaborating with a non-profit should not get paid in the first place. We can have a debate on what the payment looks like, because you can do something like a complementary currency, or you can give them some benefits they otherwise don't have. There are all kinds of things. On top of that one, the basic fundamental layer below that should be a basic income. But do you agree with my philosophy that if we really want to get into a climate of change, we really want to mobilize the world to really unite ourselves to get the change going, we need a financial relief, whatever we call it, to enable people to free them up to actually do it?
Yeah, first, yes, absolutely. Second, an unconditional basic income is no payment. It is not a payment for voluntary work or care work. It is not a payment at all. It is unconditional. That's very important. And third, unconditional basic income does not mean for me that voluntary work is done and all the people are doing voluntary work and so on. And the profit world remains to be much stronger, much better, and you are the little puppies and monkeys jumping around voluntary working on an unconditional basic income. So I think the change will be that different kinds of work, which can emerge more by an unconditional basic income. So new kinds of companies, new kinds of corporations and so on can establish themselves and then climb income and payment for themselves. And you can become rich with such work which is not paid today. I think, and that's what the basic income is for me, it is not a buy-side niche. And the strength and the power on capital, the power on all the money, and the power about the politicians and whatever is in the hands of those who remain earning immense sums of money. I think payment will change. So basic income is the floor to create and establish new moods, new understandings, new jobs, new companies, new startups, different kind, and then payment is there for those who do that work and less for those who do the old work which can be taken over by machines as well. And that is all the work which is not related to life, whether animals or plants or human beings or the organism of the planet Earth. So efficiency, rationalism is good for everything, just material stuff, but you need time, you need emotions, empathy for plants, for animals, and that's a different thing.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Clear.
Yeah, you go, Wim, or?
I thank you so much, Enno, for this wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
I learned a lot as well, and I'm going to think more about the whole idea of shifting our concept of work, and then it's not a payment. If you think like that, like it's not a payment because it's unconditional. There's no expectations. There's no, there's no conditions at all. Yeah, so then it cannot be a payment because a payment is an exchange for something, and that's conditional.
I'm a single. I have been a single father, and I'm a mother. Look to the mother. Give the mother money and say, "Mother, here's the payment for taking care for your baby." Hopefully, she will hit you.
Yeah.
This is so unhuman. So unbelievable. You are paying a woman, a mother, for taking care for their baby. Yeah. How cruel, how brutal, how ugly is that? But on the other hand, a mother, of course, needs an income, like everybody needs an income, and that should be very high. So I'm suggesting to higher the income for mothers, absolutely, because they do such an important work. Not to pay them, that means you do what I want, but to give the opportunity and to give a much higher level of economic security.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a good moment to say goodbye, and I think we can definitely plan in a second session. But thank you for opening our show, Climate of Change podcast.
Yes.
You're the first, and I think this is a great glimpse into where we should be heading as humanity going forward in the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Ben. Thank you, Wim.
Thank you very much, Enno. Bravo.
Thanks for the audience to listen.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Okay, and now the video. Goodbye. Now the video cuts. Sorry, I should have said that later.
Yep.
But
and broadcast.
Yeah, this podcast